Probably Scallion's map is better known than Casey's map, and quite frankly, I haven't seen Casey's map. If it's similar to the Navy's map, then so be it. I don't know that the U.S. Navy would rely on something from a psychic. The United States Navy is known to have some of the best scientists that there are when it comes to oceanography and astronomy, both. So I don't know that they would be dependent on anything done by Edgar Casey. They would most likely create their own map based on their own research.
Okay. Well, when I've been looking at the maps, and I've studied a lot of them too, the Navy map and the Edgar Casey map are the closest to each other. They all have some of the same elements and some of the same features, but
Right.
Those two are very close.
Right.
In studying the map, it sure does look to me like areas of Missouri and Arkansas near the Ozark Mountains will be underwater.
Yeah.
And when water enters a new area permanently, it doesn't usually just cover the eventual high water mark, but it goes considerably beyond that point during
Right.
the crisis, and then it settles back down to its new level. That would indicate that with the water level so close to the Ozarks, it could go considerably higher into those hills. And it's also been proposed that that the cause of these changes will be a massive earthquake in the New Madrid fault zone. So why would the Navy have this area targeted as a good survival site when it is so close to that earthquake zone?
Okay, well, that's an excellent set of questions there. These men were told in the briefings that the Arkansas, Missouri Ozarks could become a series of islands. And when I say series, it would be literally hundreds, if not thousands, of islands. Missouri has more bridges, Lou, than any state in the United States, and it's not even close to being the largest state. The majority of those bridges, of course, are in the Ozarks regions. The majority of these bridges are also what we call low water bridges here, which typically there are several good-sized pieces of culvert pipe with a concrete slab, or maybe just a bridge that's maybe 3 feet above a good-sized creek. All it takes is for this water to come up 3 to 5 feet, and you would create islands all over the Ozarks just by having the water come up 5 feet. Now, here's what the Navy says about the New Madrid seismic zone. They say that first of all, that the Mississippi River will be 50 to 100 miles wide, 100, 200 feet deep. And when that weight of that water is bearing down on the New Madrid seismic zone, it will trigger at least 3 9-point plus earthquakes. That's a direct quote from the Navy classified briefings. Now, if you look at a FEMA map of the regions that are going to be destroyed and devastated by the New Madrid seismic zone, you'll see they have it Region 1, Region 2, and Region 3, and so forth. Most of the worst destruction and damage goes north, south, and east. It doesn't go very far west at all. Once you get about 50 miles west of New Madrid, you're already into Region 2, which is basically where the Ozarks begins. The New Madrid seismic zone is really outside of the Ozarks as far as Missouri is concerned. It comes a bit into the Arkansas side of it. It's a whole different terrain, very quickly going west, and a whole different kind of rock. And the kind of rock you've got determines on how efficiently the energy is transmitted. Here in the Midwest, our rock, and even going east, transmits the energy very efficiently. In California, if you're 50 or 100 miles from an earthquake, you're probably not going to feel it. But here, you could be 500 or 600 miles east of the New Madrid seismic zone, and it'll ring your church bells, because it's done that before. In the period of winter of 1811, 1812, there were hundreds of earthquakes on the New Madrid seismic zone. 3 of them strong enough to ring church bells back east, 1 of them strong enough to make the Mississippi River run backwards for more than a day. It's power almost beyond belief. If you've ever seen the Mississippi River, to even conceive backwards is breathtaking. So, let's get to your question. Why would the Navy do this? Okay. There is some risk of some water being in the Ozarks. Most of the Ozarks will not have a problem. Low-lying areas could have a problem. The Arkansas, Missouri Ozarks has no major cities. The largest city is Springfield, Missouri, about 250,000 people. The major metropolitan areas are nearby are St. Louis, Kansas City, and Memphis, none of which are in the Ozarks. The population of the Arkansas, Missouri Ozarks is mostly white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. very few minorities of any ethnic group, almost no Muslims, very few blacks, and a sprinkling of American Indians and almost no Asians. The men and women who live in the Ozarks think that hunting and fishing is God's gift to men and women, and if a local boy was to bring a shotgun or rifle in his pickup truck to high school and leave it parked on the parking lot during classes, that's thought of as normal. It's a whole different culture down here. When there's deer season, many businesses and some of the schools shut down because nobody shows up. Probably half the families have a garden of some kind. Many families have chickens and goats and cattle, of course. There's a strong culture of being independent down here. And for all those reasons, a long growing season, plenty of water, distance from major population centers, a relatively short, relatively mild winter. That's why the Navy designated the Arkansas, Missouri Ozarks.
Well, have there been enough people moving into the Ozarks from other areas to start changing that culture, that local culture you're talking about?
Not really. We're always on the lookout for Californians, but other than that, not really. It's a huge, it's a vast area. One county in Missouri is larger than the state of Rhode Island. It's a fairly good sized state. Texas County, Missouri is larger than the state of Rhode Island, the entire state. And that's just one county in the Ozarks. It's a vast area of tens of thousands of square miles.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Okay.
Thanks, John. The information you just stated, the military must have got that information from somewhere. I mean, we do know there's reports that the military had this secret remote viewing division, etc. In regards to that, do you think the government is aware of something that's about to occur? Obviously, there's a NLE, National Level Emergency Drill, that's about to occur. They've had this, they've been looking for MREs for a possible New Madrid. Do you think the government's aware that something imminent is about to occur there?
Well, you may be referring, Jules, to contracts that they put up for bid in late in December, early in January. Meals to feed 7 million survivors of a shake on a New Madrid site. In us barefoot hillbillies, we call it the New Madrid seismic zone, by the way, not New Madrid.
Yep.
And that's a local thing. But 7 meals to feed 7 million refugees for, I believe it was 10 days or 2 weeks. Blankets for 7 million refugees. Trainers to train people to rescue folks trapped under steel reinforced concrete buildings that have collapsed. Underwater body bags, which I didn't know there was such a thing until January. Apparently it's a heavier fabric with a closing mechanism that doesn't allow liquids to get back out. There's no precedence for ordering these meals and blankets regarding the New Madrid seismic zone. FEMA's known about it since FEMA was created. FEMA took over from civil defense. There's nothing new about the New Madrid seismic zone being at risk. What's new is buying up these food and blankets and getting ready for something. Do they know something? Well, it certainly looks like they do. These drills, they do periodically. The closer you get to New Madrid, Missouri, the more you find county sheriffs and chiefs of police, fire chiefs, paramedic leaders, all very, very aware of the threats posed by the New Madrid seismic zone.
Thank you. Jim, do you have a question for John?
Yeah, hi, John. So nice to meet you.
Good to meet you. And you are Jim D?
Yes, Jim D, Jim Dye.
Jim Dye, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, here's the question. Do you have any information on the oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico and if it is still leaking?
Well, I haven't been following what's going on right now all that much, and it's difficult to get much information out of there. If anybody has been checking into it, they probably know that. But the Gulf of Mexico does play a big role in the Gulf Stream stopping, and maybe that bears looking into and talking about a bit. My article at my website, The Gulf Stream Has Stopped, mentions it being the second most important story in 2,000 years, which of course it is. In my paper I wrote in January of 2006, no need for panic, I warned the Gulf Stream is at risk of stopping 5 to 20 years in the future, and it had already lost 35% of its mass and velocity. Well, 5 years into the future happened in June of 2010. A very weak, very fragile, very much at risk Gulf Stream was brought to a stop by the British Petroleum oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico. There was a university-level 100 feet long, fairly cold. Anyway, they take a tank of fairly cold water, 100 feet long, 8 by 8 feet, salt water, and they inject fairly warm salt water at one end, about 20 degrees warmer, 30 degrees warmer, and it moves as right through there, forming a thermal barrier. The warm water will move right through the cold water. If you put oil in the mix, the thermal barrier between the warm water and cold water breaks down, and the warm water will no longer move from one end to the other. It just mixes in with the cold water. According to the scientists I've talked to, that's what happened in June of 2010. The British Petroleum oil spill put enough water into what they call the Gulf Loop current to break the Gulf Loop current. That in turn took enough mass and velocity out of the Gulf Stream to stop the Gulf Stream altogether. And in my article at my website, I have the link to the U.S. Navy website where they have the sea surface temperatures. The U.S. Navy publishes a brand new map every 24 hours showing sea surface temperatures all over the planet. You can see the Gulf Stream coming up the east coast of Florida, past Georgia, South Carolina, and at Cape Hatteras, North Carolina, it starts going east. It used to go all the way up to Long Island, but now it starts going east at Cape Hatteras. It goes out a couple hundred miles and starts doing this loop-to-loop eddy thing and basically stops before it gets more than a couple hundred miles out into the ocean. That's why last summer Moscow had the worst summer in 1,000 years. That's why this winter Moscow's having the worst winter in 1,000 years. They've got records going back to the year 1010. There's not many places on the planet that have that, but they do.
Right.
Yes. Great Britain, England, Ireland, and Scotland had the worst winter since they've kept records. You may have seen the photographs of people in Ireland lined up to get fresh water at government watering points. They don't bury the pipes deep enough to deal with serious winter in the United Kingdom. They've never had to. Charles de Gaulle Airport was partly closed down in December because they thought the roof would collapse from a snow load. They didn't engineer or design a snow load for the Charles de Gaulle Airport because it doesn't snow in Paris.
Right. Yeah.
So, and here's the deal, ladies and gentlemen. Dr. Zangari, Dr. Luigiani Zangari, the PhD scientist that we interviewed extensively for the last 2 weeks of July 2010. Here's a direct quote from him: "The Gulf Stream is a pacemaker of the climate of the planet." Now, up until I met Dr. Zangari, I thought, like most people think, the Gulf Stream affected the weather of the East Coast of the United States, the United Kingdom, and Western Europe, and Scandinavia. I had no idea its impact on the jet stream. It was a regulating factor, past tense, a regulating factor on the jet stream. That 200-mile-an-hour wind that's up above us, no matter where you are, it makes our weather do what it does. With that regulating factor gone, weather has become quite unpredictable. And agriculture needs predictable weather. They need to know there's going to be not too much and not too little rain, not too much and not too high or low of temperatures. That predictability is not quite completely gone, but not far from it